All Elite Wrestling has one of the biggest, varied, and diverse rosters in professional wrestling today. However, there are several stars on the All Elite Wrestling payroll that are currently out of action or off All Elite Wrestling television. With some of the biggest events on the horizon, such as AEW All in Texas, and more shows coming up in the near future, we're going to talk about 5 names that could be set for a return to AEW television very soon in this countdown video. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Before we begin, you can see right there, we're currently at 22,459 subscribers. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Join the ever-expanding WNU, that being the Wrestling News universe, as we get closer and closer to our goal this year of 25,000 subscribers. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. And also, you can scan that QR code right there on the sidebar and join members of the WN365 roster. You can also click the link in the video description below or the join button. You get your badges, your emojis, and your exclusive members only content. Right, let's get into today's countdown video and talk about 5 names that could be set to return to AEW television soon. Of course, AEW has a very, very big roster and there's only so many spots and spaces for people to get on AEW television, but there are several names currently off of AEW TV right now that are expected to return soon. Now, the reason they're off TV is individual and it's on a case-by-case basis. Sometimes it's injury, sometimes it's storyline, sometimes it's visa, sometimes it's no creative plans, sometimes it's something entirely different. But with some of the biggest shows of the year, AEW All in Texas, AEW's first ever stadium show at Globe Life Field in Texas, AEW All Out. In addition to that, you've got Forbidden Door in the UK coming up. We've got some massive events coming up on the calendar for AEW, and that could mean that AEW could have several surprises, returns, and other creative plans up their sleeve to bring back some AEW wrestlers to TV in the very near future. So let's get into 5 names that could be set to return to AEW TV very soon, beginning with the Rated R superstar Cope. Now, as of right now, as far as we're aware, Adam Copeland is not missing off AEW television because he's injured or anything like that. No, Adam Copeland returned to AEW television at World's End, of course, at the end of last year, and he went straight into a feud with AEW World Champion Jon Moxley. It resulted in several title matches, of course. He had a main event match at the Revolution pay-per-view. Of course, it became a 3-way match after Christian Cage got involved with invoking his title shot during the match. There was also a street fight on the following episode of AEW Dynamite on March 19th, where Adam Copeland failed to win the match, so he moved out of that AEW World Championship picture. Instead, he was teaming with FTR, and he was challenging, still involved with this whole Death Rider storyline that he was originally involved with Jon Moxley, but instead he was going after the World Trios Championship. Now, going into the match at AEW Dynasty back in April, of course, there was this feeling that something was going to happen. Somebody was going to turn on someone. There was Dax Harwood looking like he was incredibly frustrated. He was walking off. He wasn't shaking the hand of Cope in the build-up to the match. Cash Wheeler was looking frustrated with Dax, and you felt like maybe that, was it going to be Dax turning on them both? Was it going to be Cash turning on Dax? What was going to happen? Well, of course, they lost against the Death Riders at AEW Dynasty. Then after the match, FTR, they turned heel in the process, attacking Cope viciously, hitting the man who had triple neck fusion surgery with pile drivers, concertos, and everything you can possibly think of. And we haven't seen Cope on AEW programming since. Now, a lot of people assumed at the time this was going to be a way to reunite Christian Cage and Cope, and we were going to get to a match at AEW All in Texas, and it was going to be Cope and Cage going up against FTR in a big tag team match at Globe Life Field in Arlington, Texas. Now, there have been some rumors and rumblings that maybe that isn't the case. Maybe Christian Cage doesn't want to turn babyface. Christian Cage doesn't want to team with Cope. He's happy doing his heel stuff, and he's doing a storyline with Nick Wayne, so that's not really on the table. Either way, regardless of what happens, Cope's going to be coming back to TV. Adam Copeland has stated that he doesn't have long left in his professional wrestling career. He did miss about a year of it due to injury when he had that broken leg that he suffered against Malachi Black in Double or Nothing in 2024. So that kind of extended his career inside the squared circle. But he's only got 18 months, maybe 2 years max left. And he's going to try and fit in as many matches as he possibly can. And this feels like a storyline to work with 2 people that are very close friends of his, that being Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler. Of course, they live very close to each other in Carolina, I think it's North Carolina, isn't it? So when it comes to all of that, we know that this match is going to happen. It's going to be Cope and someone versus FTR All in Texas. Now, whether or not it's Christian Cage, we'll have to wait and see. Either way, as we get closer to AEW All in Texas, at the time of recording this video, less than a month to go, about 3 weeks to go, Cope's return to AEW television, you would think, has got to be imminent. Whether it's happening as soon as Grand Slam Mexico this coming Wednesday or AEW Collision on Saturday, of course. FCR very constant presence on that show. Either way, the Radar Superstars can be back on AEW TV soon. So this one is inevitable. Cope will be coming back and he'll be involved with FTR at AEW All in Texas in some shape, form, or capacity. What about Hikaru Shida? Now, we haven't seen Hikaru Shida for the longest time on AEW television, have we? We really haven't. And Hikaru Shida is one of the most decorated AEW women's champions of all time, right? A 3-time AEW Women's World Champion. She carried the division throughout the pandemic era of All Elite Wrestling and was so successful that a couple of times they put the belt back on her because she's very good at what she does inside the squared circle. But she hasn't competed inside of an AEW ring in 2025, which is pretty shocking when you think about it, considering that we're over halfway through the year at this point. We're close to halfway through the year. We're in June of 2025, and Hikaru Shida hasn't had a single match for All Elite Wrestling. Now, if you were worried or there was a concern that she was injured or anything like that, Hikaru Shida's not injured. She has been having matches so far this year in Japan. Most recently, she had a match right at the end of May for Gogen Pro Heritage. She was involved in a 4-on-3 handicap match. So she's been having fairly regular matches in Japan. The reason as for why she's currently unable to wrestle for AEW is because she's got visa issues. She recently was on a stream, and she revealed actually this month in June of 2025, at the time recording this video, that Shida's absence from AEW was due to visa issues. And she went on to explain that there are quite a few international wrestlers in AEW that are in the process of renewing their visas, and the AEW legal team is very busy renewing the visas for lots of talent. So sometimes these things can take time, and especially nowadays with the climate the way it is, sometimes visas can take longer than they used to, etc., etc. So as of right now, the only matches that Hikaru Shida can do are those in Japan. But you get the impression with the AEW Women's Division having more spotlight on it in recent months than it has maybe previously in the history of All Elite Wrestling, with two very high-profile champions in the division, with Mercedes Moné holding the TBS Championship and with Timeless Toni Storm being one of the most popular and well-known acts in the entire company as the AEW Women's World Champion, with a massive match between them both taking place at AEW All in Texas. The spotlight's really never been bigger on the Women's Division in AEW, and coming out of All in Texas, depending on who's the champion and what have you, they're going to need challengers. And Hikaru Shida, she's had matches against Timeless Toni Storm multiple times. She's had matches against Mercedes Moné, so she could easily slot into whatever AEW has planned for the women's division coming out of All in Texas and for the second half of the year. But it does just depend on how quickly they can sort all of those visa issues. But you feel like the moment they can, Hikaru Shida, she'll get back onto AEW television very quickly. Let's move up to the former TNT champion, Jack Perry. The scapegoat, once again, has just vanished from AEW television. The last time we saw Jack Perry compete on AEW programming was in November of 2024. It's close to 7 months since we've seen Jack Perry compete on AEW TV. And that's when he dropped the AEW TNT Championship to Daniel Garcia at the AEW Full Gear pay-per-view on the 23rd of November 2024. Now, he has competed in matches since then, but in 2025, he's only competed in one match. Now, technically, it was on an AEW co-branded show at the Tokyo Dome. It was Wrestle Dynasty, which, of course, was New Japan, CMLL, and AEW's co-branded show. He challenged for the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship. He lost against Yota Tsuji. It was on the 5th of January, and we just haven't seen Jack Perry ever since. Now, as far as we're aware, once more, there hasn't been an injury for Jack Perry, anything like that. If you see his social media, he's been doing metal melding and making stuff in his backyard in his home. He was involved, of course, in the New Elite faction with the Young Bucks and Kazuchika Okada, and Jack Perry was involved in all of that. But once the Young Bucks went off of AEW television, sort of around October time of last year, you kind of felt that Jack Perry kind of felt a bit directionless. And then once he lost the TNT Championship, he really felt even more directionless, didn't he? And once again, it feels like creatives kind of struggling to figure out what they want to do and struggling to figure out if they can do anything with Jack Perry. But as you feel we get closer, some of the biggest events of the years, and there, of course, has been rumored to be the Young Bucks facing off against Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay at AEW All In Texas. You feel like that might be a perfect time for Jack Perry to once again reappear and be realigned with the Young Bucks and this version of the Elite. We don't really know what Okada's doing now that Okada seemingly has aligned with the Don Callis family in their feud against Kenny Omega. So maybe Jack Perry comes back for something totally different. We'll have to wait and see, but he does feel a bit directionless. Obviously, the entire scapegoat character is based around the fallout of CM Punk's exit from All Elite Wrestling, but that was a while ago now. That was in 2023. And yes, Jack Perry came back in 2024, but the whole scapegoat angle kind of feels a bit dead at this point. Everyone's moved on, at least they should have, because time has passed. So what do they do for Jack Perry? Does he have to find a completely different character? Can his character even work in AEW in 2025? Is there a situation where, once again, he has to go to New Japan Pro Wrestling and just work there for a little bit until AEW figures out what they want to do? Could, as I mentioned, because we're getting into some of the biggest shows of the year, like All Out, which is an anniversary of Brawl Out, maybe that's when Jack Perry comes back. We're not really sure. But you feel like as we get to All In Texas, one of the pillars of AEW should be involved in AEW television, shouldn't he? So we'll see if the former TNT champion does indeed come back to AEW programming soon. Eddie Kingston. It's inevitable he's coming back. The real question is when. Eddie Kingston hasn't wrestled a match in over a year. Now, unlike some names we mentioned previously, like Adam Copeland, his storyline, or Jack Perry, just looks like creatively there's nothing there for him at the moment. Hikaru Shida, visa issues. Eddie Kingston hasn't wrestled for over a year because he had an absolutely devastating injury in May of 2024. He had a match. It was a no-ropes last man standing match against Gabe Kidd for the New Japan Strong Championship, and he broke his leg. There was a spot where he was suplexed onto a guardrail, his leg hit it, and in that he broke his leg. He tore his meniscus, tore his ACL, his MCL, everything you can possibly think of, he tore it. Now, that was over a year ago, and at the time, it did take a few weeks for Eddie Kingston to have surgery, but the suggestion is that he would miss around 9 to 12 months of action. Now that we're over 12 months, everyone's been waiting and been just hoping that he's going to be coming back any minute now. Now, he has gone onto social media several times and spoken about how there has been some delays in his rehabilitation. As I mentioned, he didn't get surgery for a long time, and then on the road to recovery, he said he had some setbacks and he had some stomach issues that was a result of stress and anxiety. There was some thought that maybe he could return at Double or Nothing at the end of May as part of the Anarchy in the Arena match when Gabe Kidd started to get involved with the Death Riders, but he wasn't an official member of the match. Many people thought that was going to be a way of Eddie Kingston being able to get involved in the match without actually being in the match. But of course, that didn't happen. We didn't see Gabe Kidd get confronted by Eddie Kingston. Of course, Gabe Kidd, the person that injured Kingston. Instead, it was Mark Briscoe that came out to kind of level the playing field in that one. And the event came and went without the Mad King returning. But the more that time goes on, we have seen recent videos of Kingston training in the gym, trying to strengthen up his leg as much as he possibly can. We've also heard him say that he's been back in the ring and he's been running the ropes and he's starting to feel closer and closer to being ring ready. So the case is, as I said, there's a lot of big shows on the horizon. All in Texas, All Out, Forbidden Door, maybe even a New Japan show that involves Gabe Kidd. But the time is ticking, and it feels imminent that the Mad King will be back in AEW. And when he does, AEW will be getting back one of their most beloved members in terms of the fan base and someone that's been out of action for such a long time. So Eddie Kingston, he's coming back very, very shortly. And speaking of people coming back shortly, Darby Allen. Darby Allen, many people think is the next AEW World Champion. I know that, of course, Jon Moxley is defending that championship against Hangman Page in the main event of All in Texas, but many people have theorized that it's always been the intention for Darby Allen to be the man to dethrone Jon Moxley. Now, Darby Allen, like some of the other names we spoke about on this list, hasn't wrestled a match in 2025 for All Elite Wrestling. He was written off of AEW television at the end of 2024. He was thrown down the stairwell on the final episode of AEW Rampage by the Death Riders in an angle to write him off television. Why? Because of course, he was training to climb Mount Everest. Lots of people were worried about Darby climbing Mount Everest, whether that was safe, whether that was the right thing to do, etc., etc. But it's something he's wanted to do his entire life, and it's something that he did achieve. We found out recently, just before Double or Nothing, that Darby Allen had indeed climbed Mount Everest. He had climbed the largest mountain in the world, and he was beginning his descent down. Now, we haven't really heard much since that he had started his descent down the mountain. We don't know how long that was going to take, and we don't know how long it was going to take for him to get ring ready, cleared to compete once again, get his ring rust sort of shaken off. There were some thoughts maybe he could show up at Double or Nothing, as was the case with Eddie Kingston. The pay-per-view came and went without Darby returning. But lots of people have theorized and speculated that Darby Allen climbing a physical mountain was the same as climbing a metaphorical mountain. And Jon Moxley had kind of sprinkled it into a few promos saying, if you wanted to beat me, you've got to climb a mountain, you've got to get to the top of the mountain and claim the AEW World Championship, and Darby Allin has done just that. And it's a fantastic story of overcoming adversity, being thrown down the steps by the Death Riders, climbing back up said steps, and then climbing the biggest mountain in the world, and then planting an AEW flag at the top of the mountain, and then in addition to that, then coming back and winning the World Championship. So many people have speculated that when Darby Allin does come back, which could be very soon, maybe as soon as after the main event of All in Texas, if Jon Moxley retains, Darby comes back and maybe wins the championship as soon as AEW All Out or something like that. So Darby, we know he's coming back. We know he's coming back soon. The question is he going to come back to win the AEW World Championship? We'll have to wait and see. But there you go, guys. There are 5 names that are from the AEW roster that are expected to come back to AEW television soon. What do you think of those names? Which ones are more likely than others? Let me know your thoughts about it in the comment section below. Let me know your opinions. Let me know which ones are your hot takes as well. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. As you can see right there, we're currently as well at 22,459 subscribers. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Join the ever-expanding WNU. In addition, you can become a member of the WN365 roster. Links in the video description below. You can scan the QR code right there on the sidebar and join members of the WN365 roster. You get your badges, your emojis, and your exclusive members-only content. I appreciate everyone, as always, for tuning in. More countdown videos coming soon, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.